Your world, your challenges, your faith. When faith within engages the world without, there's power. It's living life from the inside out.
With the upheaval and isolation of the pandemic, more Americans are struggling with depression. And most of the time, if you haven't experienced depression, it can be hard to know how to be a good friend to a person in the middle of it. So today on Family Life's Inside Out, we're going to dig into how we might be of help to people who are depressed. I'm Martha Manikas Foster, and my guest is author, speaker, and book coach Dina Dyer. She penned the recent Christianity Today blog post with this title, Depression Sufferers in Your Church, Wish You Knew These 3 Things. Welcome, Dina, to Inside Out.
Thank you for having me.
As much as I want to spend our time working to better understand depression and our friends living with it, would you start us off with what you see as common misunderstandings about depression? And have you found that some of those misunderstandings are more commonly experienced with Christians?
Oh, great question. I think some of the common misunderstandings are that everyone experiences depression the same way or looks the same way when they have depression. Mm-hmm. So some people can appear very happy and bubbly in a crowd, but they may be suffering from depression at home. They just don't want to show it, so they kind of put on a face in a crowd. Or that every person finds help in the same way. Some find help through medication, some find help through therapy, some from a combination, and some people do get over it without those kind of helps. I think for Christians, some Christians have had the experience that they believe it's only a spiritual issue, which it can be a spiritual issue, but it's very multifaceted, or that you can just get over it by having more faith.
Well, that can be damaging, I would think, for the person who's depressed, who is then thinking, feeling, I'm not worthy,
Right.
I just don't have enough faith.
Right. Yeah, the shame is isolating, and isolation increases sometimes those feelings of depression, so it's a vicious cycle.
Right. Yes. That can't be helpful, even if it's well intended in some way, or just from a place of not knowing enough. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, as people who follow Jesus Christ, we want to be compassionate like Christ, of course, and with that as a focus, what's one of the things you wish people understood about depression that it really seems that they don't?
I wish people understood how multifaceted it is. There's so many different components that go into a person suffering with depression. For me, in my experience, there's been a spiritual component of feeling alienated from God. There's a physical component with the fatigue, and then there's mental fatigue or mental things that I'm struggling with when I'm in the midst of depression. So it's very sneaky, and there's a lot of things. The physical goes into it because I have a lot of family history on both sides with depression.
So someone from the outside might see someone who's depressed and they think that you just need to get up and get out and do more or something, not recognizing that there's a fatigue element to it, right?
Exactly.
Right. So let me just reset for the people who are listening, Dina. If you're just joining us, you're listening to Inside Out on Family Life. I'm talking today with Dina Dyer, author of the recent blog post, Depression Sufferers in Your Church, Wish You Knew These 3 Things. Dina, people who, and we've kind of touched on this, people who want to be helpful don't always say helpful things. So what are some of the things people should avoid saying to someone who's going through a depression?
I do know that people who say things are trying to be helpful, but like you said, it can be damaging. So it would be really helpful if people could avoid saying just to think positive, or my Aunt Linda had depression and she did this and this. You just need to try that. We've touched on things like, the sin in your life is causing that. Sometimes it's other people's sin that we're experiencing fallout from that can cause depression. Although sometimes our own sin gets us into a depressive state, but we just never know. And then also just giving us remedies. Have you tried exercise or, vitamins, that kind of thing?
Right.
Those kind of things are not helpful because, again, it creates some more shame and distance that you're not really trying to be empathetic, although you may be trying to give an answer. What we really need is just empathy and understanding.
So, Dina, if you had to kind of put together one final thing, one final insight that you'd like people to know about connecting or relating with a person with depression, what would that be?
Just reach out. Sometimes I think depressed people, we fall off the grid, so to speak. We fall out of contact because we're overwhelmed with depression. So text us, reach out, offer to pray with us or for us. Not just, hey, I'm going to pray for you, but ask, how can I pray for you? And then the ministry of presence, just being there, just offering to come over and sit. It's so huge, and it can make such a difference.
So in these times with COVID, and it's just more often people are not following through on being together for a variety of medical and, pandemic reasons. Can you give some ideas of how we could be living with that ministry of presence and sometimes needing to be socially distant? Are there ways in which people can write a letter in the old-fashioned way?
That would be great. Yeah, letters, cards, texts, a Zoom call, a real phone call.
Right.
Those are more rare now. Anything like that, just to say, I'm thinking of you, I care. Drop off a care package. Drop off their favorite Starbucks drink. I've had friends do that. It means so much just to know that someone is thinking of you in those specific ways.
Well, those are beautiful suggestions. And thank you for putting yourself out there to share this with others who may not understand depression very much at all. I really appreciate that, both that you wrote this blog post and that you're talking with me here today on Inside Out.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
My guest has been author, speaker, and book coach Dina Dyer. Learn more about Dina and her writing at dinadyer.com. That's DENADYER.com. I'm Martha Manikas Foster with Inside Out on Family Life.